So I guess I'll call the meeting to order. It's 7:35, as I just explained, for the benefit of folks on TV there. Both of our co-chairs, Ala Baranowski, will not be here. Nick Argento is running late and asked that I fill in his chair until he gets here. So once Nick arrives, I'll turn things over to him. But otherwise, we're in business. The first agenda item is to accept the minutes for March 9th, 2022. So I'll ask if anyone has a motion to accept those minutes.
I'll make the motion.
Second the motion?
I'm going to ask you all to excuse me as I also keep my notes here. All in favor? All right. So we'll accept the minutes of March 9th, 2022 without amendment, and go on to agenda item number 2, which is committee correspondence. I haven't seen any. I asked Nick if we had received any since our March 9th meeting, and none that I'm aware, none that he replied about, so maybe he can update us when he gets back, but there wasn't, unless anyone has seen anything in our email or in their personal emails related to the committee's work.
I have not.
No, I haven't received
Okay.
anything.
Okay. So we'll see if Nick has anything for us when he gets here, but otherwise, I'll make a note that no committee members have received correspondence since our last meeting. Okay. Look at this, we're already at the 7:45, we're only at 7:46 now. I should run
We're
every
ahead of
meeting, I think.
schedule already.
All right, our next item, discuss and analyze the comments received from the Town Seal Review Committee, by the committee, I should say, including results from the resident survey. So, obviously, we had set aside an hour on the agenda for this. I sent out a document earlier today with what I had done over the last couple of weeks. Ala had, I think that came out through Nick. Did that come out through Nick's email, or did that only go to me? Ala had given us about a paragraph.
I think I received that information under your name, but.
Okay. Either way, I guess another question is, with Ala, Nick, and Jenna missing, how much should we proceed with this? Is it, because it really is it's our major task this meeting and maybe next is to analyze all the feedback we've received, and given that our co-chairs are missing and another committee member is missing, how do folks feel about going forward with this, or are there other ideas for how we might proceed right now?
I, for one, feel relatively uncomfortable with 3 members missing, because this is the guts of the whole discussion. And to have not, I was going to say just us, and just us is wonderful. We're here and we've been able to come to this meeting, but it disturbs me that we don't have, if we were missing just one person, I would be comfortable with that. But missing 3, 2 of whom are co-chairs, I find somewhat disturbing in terms of us coming to any kinds of conclusions. All we'd be doing is batting back and forth and not really getting anywhere, because we're missing 3 key people.
Yeah, especially with both of the co-chairs missing, I feel like it's not quite right for us to make such an important decision.
I would like to interject something. It's a little off the subject, but I want to thank you, Ian, for that tremendous amount of work. I was blown away by the amount of work and time that you put into this. It was just incredible. I want to make that official. I, for one, thought it was amazing.
It was helpful for me just to get a sense of the big picture. What are we talking about? And just raw, who wants to keep it, who wants to change it. And also, as we had discussed, the underlying reasons, right? We wanted to know not just what do folks think about the question of keep or change the current town seal, but what are the main themes that came through. So I'd be curious to know if other folks kind of lump those responses together the same way, or had different ways of looking at them or not. But again,
I had gone through an exercise similar to yours some time ago. I think when we had about 300 responses, and we got about 65 more after I did that. They did something similar to you, and I basically used the same approach that you did in terms of lumping them, and some of them were sort of neither here nor there, others were clearly yes or clearly no, and never took that final step of grouping them by why, the whys, which found very helpful in what, the work that you did on that.
In the email, there was there were two categories. And it seemed like maybe there's, maybe another category, just no change
Okay.
at all. But other than that, and I don't know how many are you,
I think I did a no change thing, and I think Ian has, that no response is kind of a no change category, I think. And I think I came up with a no change. I didn't actually look at mine. Once I looked at Ian's, I went, well, the
I
work
know.
was done. I didn't even go back to what I had done, but I did have a no change category. And when I had totaled up my numbers, it was fairly small.
yeah.
It was not, it
Well,
would
it's
not
not
have
like-
tipped stuff either way. It was.
Right, it
was
seems like
enough-
they would say, don't make a change, don't make a change, but then they would give changes.
Right.
You know,
Well,
Right.
that's the problem.
But if
They
you're
say,
gonna
"Don't
do
make
it, right?"
Don't make
Yeah.
a change, but I do hate the cotton gin, or, something, and so
Yes.
it's like,
Yeah.
well, duh, so,
So I think we could certainly there might be a few here or there that other folks might classify differently, but my sense was that it was pretty, the big picture was pretty clear in terms of,
yeah, when I did it over a 300
Yeah.
thing, there were only about 10 or 15 that I would say were questionable out
Yeah.
of
That's-
that grouping of 300.
Yeah.
There might have been 10 or 15 where I went, I don't know what this person is really
yeah,
saying.
Right.
that's around what I came up with.
So it was a small, very small
It's pretty
percentage.
negligible, yeah.
Yeah.
I had 30 categories that way, but even that wouldn't swing the totals.
I guess I'm in support of the idea of maybe like tabling it with the caveat that if the next time we gather, we're at this same situation, then we need to bite the bullet and do that. His precedent has been that it's likely that this might happen again. It's worth waiting until another meeting because we have the
Yeah.
luxury of time with the, like us needing to do what we need to do by the fall town meeting. But if we meet again in a month and it's the five of us,
Right.
then
You can't stop.
or we pick a time where everyone can commit within reason, because I know things come up last minute.
I agree with you. We
I
gave it a
guess
try tonight.
if we're going to pass over it, then the meeting might be ending pretty soon, because that's what we were going to do tonight, which is fine. Like, I have no desire just to meet for the sake of meeting. If our intended purpose tonight is not going to happen, fine, but you have the agenda in front of you, and I don't, but,
So
it
the only
does
other,
happen.
the only other agenda item, that maybe we could skip ahead to and come back to this when Nick gets here, is begin draft a report to the town meeting. And, to be honest, I'm not quite sure. I think my sense is that that's probably Nick and Ala had a sense of what that would entail. When's the next town meeting? It's not till October, right?
It's not,
Scheduled.
there's an October, yeah.
Is there, we had discussed the potential for a special town meeting, but nothing's.
No, I mean, we had talked about that, but I don't think that's necessary.
Yeah.
It's the third Monday
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
October.
That's a lot of rigmarole for something that we waited this long, we could wait until the fall.
Yeah.
Third
That'd be my
Monday.
opinion.
It'd be the 17th.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Tuesdays.
And as far as what you just mentioned, it's somewhat predicated on the conversation. It seems like we're deciding to wait until a more opportune time to have. What the report would be basically be a summary
Right.
Yeah.
of that conversation. So,
No, I agree with you, I think. I'm uncomfortable with it tonight, but if it happens a second time, we just have to go ahead. And as far as the direct report, really, the direct report, you can't really start talking about the direct report
Right.
until we've had the discussion
Right.
of where we're going with it. So, I mean, moving ahead to the direct report is null and void until you've had the other discussion, at least in my opinion,
Yeah,
for what
no,
it's worth.
yeah, no. It's not much to decide.
I agree with that.
Do we want to consider, Nick had also emailed us earlier in the day,
Right.
these two motions that he indicated he wants us to, he'd hoped we would consider either tonight or at a future meeting. regarding the conclusion of the work of the committee. I'm reading from it right now. Indicated he's hopeful that others of us might draft ideas too, but basically, and this is probably what that agenda item is driving at, he's proposing two possible motions for the town meeting. The town meeting can accept the first one and render the second proposal moot if proposal number one is adopted. So basically, one would be to motion one would be replace the current town seal adopted by the town meeting in 1977 with the original 1913 seal. And then second, replace the current Westborough town seal adopted by the town meeting in 1977 and form a new committee designated by the town moderator to design a new Westborough town seal following a similar vetting process used to form our committee.
I think that's the very last step, though. I mean, this has to come after we've had the discussion about, I mean, the numbers that you presented, I think, say that the recommendation is going to be to change the town seal. So, as opposed to a new town seal, I guess, the recommendation probably is going to end up being changing it based on the numbers that we've seen that you sent out today. But this is kind of getting ahead of ourselves again in terms of the discussion, because a lot of people had a lot of different ideas about what they wanted to see if the town seal were changed, which will kind of determine whether we want to go with the old one or if we want to design a new one. That's the discussion I think we're going to have when we have a more, a larger turnout at the group. I think that's where our real discussion is going to end up.
Yeah. My thoughts on what Nick said in the email, I think it would be good to have both options presented to the town meeting. However, or at least I think it would be good to have two options presented to the town meeting. However, I would think it would be better to change the second option rather than forming a committee to design a new town seal. I think it would be better to hire a professional, ideally one who is connected to the town, to design it and to raise funds for that with a voluntary crowdfunding campaign.
Well, I think the way it's phrased now for that committee to design a new town seal, I think you're absolutely right. I think that needs to be
The committee should
looked at first.
But if town meeting votes to use the old seal,
Well, you would do that first. If
That
the
would
town meeting votes to do that, then it makes the second one null and void.
Yes.
But then we have to concentrate, if they don't vote for that, then we have to make sure that the second one reflects what we really want to see.
Yes.
Do we want to see another town seal designed by a committee, or do we want to see a town seal designed by a professional?
but I think
And
you're
how-
supposed to do that too, isn't that part of the charge, to decide how
Yes.
it's gonna be
Yeah,
done?
to
Well, if we-
suggest
yeah,
a manner for.
But if we go back to 19, whatever the
If
heck
we go
it
to the
was,
19,
then that's
right.
done, we've
Yeah.
decided.
Yeah.
It's decided.
Yeah,
If town votes on it, that way.
I agree, Jordan, that I would like to avoid forming a new committee
Yeah.
if we ultimately go that road, right?
Yes,
I mean,
but I particularly think that something being designed by committee is very much has negative connotations to it, and so I think you would want to avoid that implication at all costs and avoid actually going down that route at all costs.
I agree.
They'll form probably a new committee
Well, they'll form-
to design something.
Well, they'll form a new committee to determine how to come up with a new seal.
I think Jordan's suggesting that we not do that, and that instead the recommendation from this committee would be to hire a professional
Yes,
designer.
yeah.
Well,
I would
that's
suggest.
my preference, it's been my preference from the first.
Yeah.
But,
But I
Same
think
here.
they would look for that
they
direction.
would,
Yeah.
they would need the direction.
Yeah, and
We would have to phrase that, but
Yeah, a new committee could organize finding such a professional and organize a drive to raise money to hire that professional.
Right.
there's also, there may be money, depending on how much it costs, we could request, or I'm sorry, that committee could request from, what's that fund called? You know, the fund with the slush fund, where they throw everything. when they throw all the extra money in.
I know.
What the heck is that
Yeah.
fund called? There's a fund that has money.
I know what you're talking about, and I
You
don't
can
know
pull
what
money
it's
from
called
that fund. I
either.
mean, you're not talking $100,000 here, you're talking, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 maybe. So, you may not even have to do a private fundraiser to do
Right.
that.
Just
Right.
like, as someone in this field, do you have any sense of how much something like that would cost? Or?
Not really. I mean, it's very specialized.
Yeah.
There are designers who are good at logo design, many designers who are good at logo design who would not be equipped to handle seal design. And I also think, talking about designing that committee, a lot of designers don't want to deal with that, right?
That's right.
So it's definitely going to be a search.
A lot don't want what?
They don't want to work with a committee.
Oh,
I can't imagine why. I just like, why wouldn't they want to do that?
If it's a designer who is a tie to the community, I could see that being a motivating factor, right? But
When do you recall when you put together that packet of all the town seals, any of the towns who recently redesigned their seal? Because that could be, we could speak to about.
I didn't, I could put an email out to the Mass Town Clerks if that's what you want me to do.
Yeah, if you wouldn't
just to
mind.
say
It could be
if
someone that
anybody-
has some recent experience with a design firm, or, because definitely knowing what it would cost if it weren't a default back to the old seal would be a great point of curiosity at the town.
Well, the cost, I was gonna say, that whole thing is gonna fall to a new committee that would be formed. But I think you're absolutely right that if Wendy could find out the cost, because the question of cost keeps coming up in various and sundry ways, like how much is it gonna cost if we change the seal, what's it gonna cost the town? And so I think anything that we can do to have an answer to the word cost in any way, shape, or form related to the seal is good.
Yeah.
And-
I
and-
think the town manager kind of made it clear that the cost would be as things need to be fixed. So if, uniforms ripped
Yeah.
or whatever, then as they're replaced, so it was just replacement cost.
Well, that's the answer
So,
we've been using
yeah.
from the beginning, but the cost of a design of a new,
Yes.
as Eric said, the cost of the design of a new seal
Yes.
is going to be an upfront flat cost of some sort, and
But
it
that's
would be nice if
that's
it-
kind of the only cost, I think, right?
the only, well, and the cost of the new seal,
Well, yes, but the
which is
design
not,
of-
which is,
Right,
yeah, I mean,
yeah,
God, that's, you can get somebody to donate it. So, all right, so,
Well, at least now we have some feedback for Nick on that.
yeah, that's true.
What did folks think about that first motion, though, about the, if after our discussion of the public sentiment, the decision was to make a recommendation to change, what did you all feel about his proposal that we revert back to the original 1913 town seal?
I think we have to look at the responses to see how many people said that.
Yeah,
Because, I heard it come up and I thought, wow, that's good. I liked that original seal. Well, that's a good idea. But I think it might be a good idea if we took a look at that spreadsheet that you made and said exactly how many people actually made that recommendation. And if it's a fairly significant number, then I think that really is a valid approach to say that this percentage of people recommended that in fact we take a look at. I think one person I remember saying something to the effect of, what's wrong with the whatever I'm going to say 1913, I don't think that's the right date, but the 1913 seal, if you just add 100th town or something to it, he mentioned one modification or something.
Yeah.
And I actually said, that's a really good idea. So when we get to that point of making our recommendations, if we feel there's enough of a mass of people that have recommended using that old one, I think it's a good idea.
It is, I don't think enough people though heard it I think if more people knew that was like an option right up front, they'd probably just say, yeah, go with that, you know, and then.
So I
it
think we
wouldn't
should
have
leave it
even-
there for now. I think
Yeah.
it certainly is a viable option that I think we should keep under consideration.
It has a number of advantages, right? It's one we could put up.
Mhm.
As much as we have the certain number of people that said they'd like to go to it, ultimately, the town meeting is gonna make the decision. It seems like a nice way to get finality versus another committee, like, how many years can this thing drag on for? And it would be probably not too much of a stretch to say and your numbers here, Nick, Ian, of the 59% change, this could be, okay, so there's a groundswell somewhat to change it. Here's what we're proposing. Now, it could be voted down, and that's perfectly okay, but like, ultimately, the people who show up at town meeting are gonna make that call, so I think it's got a lot of pluses to it.
But I think one of the pluses is that if it comes first, then it would have to come first. You'd have to vote on that first.
Yeah.
In a warrant
Yeah,
sequence, that would come first. And if they vote for that, done, sold, finished, goodbye, it's been nice seeing you, you know. And you don't even have to proceed to the second option of the new committee and designing a new one and how much it's gonna cost and all that stuff.
and it seems, my guts tell me the cost is getting an actual new seal machine. But beyond that, all the letterhead, everything that's out there is gonna be used until it needs to be
It
replaced.
phased in, it's all
And then
phased.
if one day that flag disintegrates and they're gonna make a new flag, if they care, because it has the seal on it, this one over here, if they care to put the new seal, there'd be that, you know, the JPEG of it, that's,
I have the original seal,
Yeah.
so
Oh,
I
you
mean,
do?
it's just
Oh my
a
God.
new plate,
oh,
That's
basically,
funny.
and I don't even know if that one's bad.
Yeah.
It's probably fine to use
Yeah.
the plate that's there.
One of the things I like about the old seal as a proposal is that I feel like in town we have like kind of two parties at odds about the cotton gin, obviously, right? And I feel like the people who have mentioned interest in the original seal are pulling from both of those parties. It kind of like crosses the boundary in a way that I find really attractive as an option.
I think with the way taxes are right now and people's feelings, they'd be more than happy to vote for the original seal.
When
Be done with it.
when you have like a two-part, whatever proposal or whatever like this, do you hear both parts of it before you vote?
They're published.
They're published
The
before.
warrant is published ahead of time and people can read it. And if you have a two-part thing of that sort, it's in the warrant and you would read the first one and then the second one, so
Yeah.
you would know that there are two parts. And then John makes a big deal about the fact that it's a two-part warrant anyway, when he
Yeah.
gets up there and says, you know, this is two parts and if you vote for this part, then warrant Article 34 goes away because we've just approved warrant Article 33.
Well, it wouldn't go away. The committee would have, whoever was in charge would have to say the intent is if this passes, that the proponent of the second one would move to pass over, which would be to take no action.
Okay.
And
So
that's-
it would be similar to, at the last town meeting, we had the two plastic bag things that were very similar but somewhat different. In that case, the proponent wanted to go forward with both.
Okay.
But if there were two similar but competing articles, then I think it would be up to the proponent to say, well, our preference is this one. If it passes, our intent is to pass over and not act on the second one, but say it's there because if the voters choose to defeat the first one, then you would like to take action on the second one. That's typically the way it would work.
Okay. I guess, part of my response too was just reading over what Nick had written, read the first one, read the second one, and my response was like, this sounds so complicated. I just want to go back, like it made the first one more attractive in comparison.
So we.
Well, the second one needs to be rewritten. I
Yeah.
mean, based
Yeah.
on your observations and the word committee, designed by committee.
Yeah, that.
It needs to be rewritten.
Yes, and we could also we could reverse the order of them.
I like the order.
No, I think the order
Yeah.
that they're in
Okay.
is better.
Agreed.
Okay.
Keep the order.
Yeah. But that's, again, I think when we have the full committee, If that ever happens, hopefully it will.
Or at least when we have both the co-chairs.
Yeah, or, yes, at least the
Well,
coach.
I mean, we know where Nick stands, obviously, right? So it's really a matter of getting feedback from Ala and Jenna. I mean, this is good feedback to give to, you know, those three committee members, you know. It's 8 o'clock, we can give Nick more time and continue to banter about. We can think about the next meeting's agenda, when that might be even. Or we can return to the discussion of public sentiment and, you know, wait for Nick to roll in and see how he feels about moving forward. So I'll throw it out there, facilitate and say, what do folks think?
Well, I think first we need to try and get, but we don't have the three people who are here to discuss when we can meet next, where we could try and get everybody here at the same time. So I think, what would our normal, I mean, it's been so long, is it the last,
Well, it seems to be Thursday.
the last Thursday of the month or something?
Wednesdays and Thursdays, it seems.
It's been-
when I have a meeting. I mean, we're getting into vacation time.
I was gonna say, I'm actually gonna be away that last week of May, so.
I can't do the 12th or the 26th, but every other Wednesday and Thursday I can do.
Phyllis, you're gone the 25th?
We're leaving on the 24th, yeah.
Okay. What about Wednesday, the 18th?
It's fine. Probably have to grab a ride with somebody, but it's fine.
That works for me.
Yeah, fine.
Obviously, we'll have to check with Nick and Ala. I think Nick's baseball schedule is such that he's got games at least a couple times a week. What's tonight?
Yeah, well, that's what's gonna happen, is we're gonna have to check his
So,
games.
yeah, maybe,
Um,
maybe a Thursday next better, but,
But Dan, you said the 19th wouldn't work for you?
9th does work.
Does work.
The 12th and the 26th don't work.
Okay. And would the 19th work for other folks as well, Thursday the 19th? So we
It's the 18th, Wednesday.
but we could say either Wednesday the 18th or Thursday the 19th.
I'll have to look at Thursday.
Depending on what Nick.
my grandson's first birthday.
Actually, the 19th is
It's a
even
big
better. No, the 19th.
He'll be long in bed by then. You
That's
better
true.
hope he is at least.
No, the 19th is actually even better for me.
Okay.
So, the 18th or the 19th. I put down the 18th, but the 19th is better, is actually better for me.
John, these are the types of things we could discuss on the email group.
What is that?
Is this the type of thing that would violate open meeting law?
You mean to set if it's
conversation
just a
set.
time, date, and place, I think that's fine.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
so how about we pencil those in and
I'll
check
ask.
with both those
Yeah.
folks before we
Sounds good.
finalize? Sounds
Yep.
like most people here could do either.
Sounds good.
So we're penciling in the 18th and 19th.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna put them in for both nights.
I'll reach out.
Yeah, I asked because Thursday the 12th is my birthday.
Aha.
Right?
I'm gonna put a question mark next to them, so at some point I'll take a question mark, I'll take one of them off.
This is not on the agenda, but I was not able to be at the portion of town meeting where, was it Nick or Ala made a report, and I'm curious to hear if anyone had. Was there any public discussion of that, or it was my daughter's christening, so I had to skip out early?
No, I think she just made the report,
But
right?
in that's not something that there is discussion
Okay.
about. So if you want to watch all 14 hours of town meeting, it's on Westborough TV. But their part was probably in the first half hour. So.
Okay. I'll-
And it might also behoove the committee, if you're interested in seeing how the Indigenous Peoples' Day discussion
Yes.
went, that's also available on YouTube. That's in the second segment,
Yeah.
probably somewhere about halfway through or so.
Okay. Let's see if Nick is in touch with us. He's not. What do we think, folks?
Well, him showing up is gonna still then present the same problem. So I think that we should end the meeting, let them know it's not rushed across
Yeah.
the Commonwealth to get here, because it's too late to have the conversation that really was the focus of tonight. And it's still not the full quorum we need, so, you know, cut the guy a break. And, you know, we had a good conversation, and we got some covered, but if we ended, you could text him and say, hey, let's meet again in a couple weeks. Still provides us plenty of time. When's the fall town, I think Wendy might have said, but John?
Was
the
that,
fall
17th.
town meeting?
Yes, is it October 17th? Is that what it is?
it's not until
So,
October.
there's no reason to try to stuff a 10-pound turkey and a 5-pound bag tonight. You know?
I mean, even if you got here like, at, 8:20 or 8:30, we really can't, I mean, we could if we felt like sitting here till 11 o'clock, have a meaningful discussion, but I'm not sure that anybody wants to do that.
That's my, but I'm open to what the consensus of the group.
Yeah,
No, I tend to agree.
yeah.
So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn if
Make
someone
a
wants to
motion
make
to adjourn.
Okay? Can somebody get a hold of him and tell him?
I can-
Go home.
Don't forget to vote on
You
the,
gonna second
What's
that?
that?
don't forget to
I'll
vote on the
second.
motion.
Oh, can we, seconded by Jordan, can we have a vote for the motion to adjourn? All in favor? It's unanimous, okay.